Coming soon from Swift River Video Productions.
What a way to start the first day of a 6-day guided hunt for black bears in Alberta with 2 tags.
Join us as we explore baiting and bow hunting techniques for North America's #2 big game animal. Come along with Swift River Video and Eastern Bow Hunting's Roy Goodwin in their project to take a Trophy Texas Whitetail.
Hello, welcome to Trophy Texas Whitetails. We're going to take you in the next hour along a trip that we took to try to locate a Trophy Texas Whitetail buck. It was a 3-year project in which we made 3 separate trips to Texas lasting 8 to 10 days each. We filmed with 2 cameramen over 2 bow hunters in each one of those trips. So we had a lot of footage, we shot a lot of deer, we saw a lot of wildlife, but I don't want anybody to think that it was easy. This was not canned game. We hunted on wild places for wild deer on big ranches in Texas. Our Texas project started when Tony Dukes, a friend of mine from Texas, talked me into going down to Texas and trying to shoot one of those big Texas bucks that everybody talks about. He made arrangements through the Brady Chamber of Commerce for us to go down there for 2 10-day stints and make a little promo tape for the Chamber of Commerce, showing the racetrack and fishing and hunting and everything that they've got to offer. Tony and Jim are showing us some shed antlers here. This is part of the tickler footage that they sent down. Some real nice bucks live on this ranch. We started our hunt off at the Quinn Ranch, 10,000 acres, working cattle ranch, run by Jim Quinn. Those are a little easier to throw in the wash machine.
Yeah, it's a little easier to get through the mud.
See, Roy, this is what these fellas do. Roy thought that all y'all did is grow big whitetail and lots of turkeys, but I told him that you had something else.
Yeah, we do. We got something on the side we do too.
First day's hunt, my cameraman and I go slugging out through the cactus, and we set up in a ground blind near a corn feeder. We weren't in stand 20 minutes and this nice buck walked by. He was too small to shoot. That afternoon we filmed all kinds of wildlife, including a lot of Rio Grande turkeys. Around all the corn feeders on the ranch, they build little fenced areas to keep the wild hogs away from the corn. That way there they keep the corn for the deer and for the turkeys, which easily go over the fence. I watched this nice buck the first day and decided to pass on him. Over he goes for his free lunch. It was a real treat to watch a buck of that caliber the first day on the hunt. As the afternoon progressed, more and more deer came in, mostly does. It was a lot of fun being on that stand. Gradually the light faded and we couldn't film anymore. But Tony and the cameraman at his stand were still busy. Tony made a quick second shot to finish off the spine hit doe. Watch as the stop action footage shows this doe drop down, jumping the string. She catches the arrow high in the spine. This happened quite frequently in Texas because the deer was so jumpy.
One down, one more doe, 2 bucks, and 2 turkey to go. Hope Roy got one, but we made a deal. We was both gonna kill a deer this afternoon.
I didn't hold up my end of the deal. I kept waiting for a big buck to come in and didn't want to disturb the game by shooting a doe. Tony did a good job. The next morning we had this pile of turkeys come in, including a couple of real rare all-white ones. Evidently there'd been domestic turkeys on the ranch 30 or 40 years ago, and this was kind of a genetic throwback, but they had the black beards. This little buck came in under Tony. He looks up, he knows something's there. But because of complete camo and very careful scent control, he didn't pay a lot of attention. Tony decided to pass on this buck. This little cow buck came in, and that was a big mistake. With the stop frame strobe effect, you can see the arrow passing right through behind the shoulder, right where it belongs. Took out the deer's lungs and his heart. He went crashing out of there, only to expire in about 40 yards.
All right. Steak dinner since this is 2 lungs. Let's go find my deer. Can't beat this. All right. A nice 3-point. Since this is not a double fork horn or 2 split horns, it's considered an inferior deer gene-wise, and the ranch we're hunting on has encouraged us to take this animal out of the herd. It is felt that if the deer had fork horns or better, it would be a better buck and mature better. So we have got us a healthy deer, and be some great eating. And we've contributed to the game management and the production of trophy bucks. He went about 40 yards, I guess. As you can see, I believe it's going to be both lungs and a heart. That's a full house for a bow hunter.
I filmed this piece without a cameraman one night, by just strapping a camera to a tree over a little clearing where we'd thrown a lot of corn out. I watched probably 20 deer this night. The interesting thing was a couple of bucks came in and just raked at some of the brush. It was the first time I'd actually watched deer working their horns against brush. I got a big kick out of it. The deal on the Quinn Ranch was that we each got to shoot 1 buck and 1 doe. We were coming back to Texas in December to hunt the Ford Ranch, and we had to keep the rest of our tags. That gave us a lot of free time, and there was one 2,500-acre pasture on the ranch where they had turned out a lot of mature goats. It took 3 days to get close enough with me in position and the cameraman on the biggest ram in the herd. It was a lot of fun, and it was my first goat. This big ram only went about 30 yards after being hit, went into the shade and just laid down. After taking care of the goat, we changed up real quick and headed out for our afternoon stand. A little fox cover scent on the boots would cover our trail on the way to the tree stand. Once in the tree stand, we didn't have to wait too long for the deer to start coming in. We'd been spreading corn on the ground in this particular location every day that we'd been there, and the farmer had been spreading some for a week or two before we got there. There was a whole bunch of deer that were getting used to coming to this spot every day for their evening meal. As you can see, there were a lot of times when we had plenty of wind. It made the deer real spooky. It was interesting sitting in trees that were only about 3 inches around with that wind blowing. I'm used to sitting in 12, 14-inch diameter oaks back home. On stand this afternoon, over 20 deer come in, including 3 8-point bucks. The largest one was the same buck we had filmed from the ground blind about a half a mile away the first day of the hunt. This time I couldn't resist.
We got my friend Roy Goodwin here, who I talked to coming down to the heart of Texas to do a little deer hunting with us. And in the course of 3.5 days, we both managed to get us a buck. I guess I'll let go of your hand now.
I may need this to shoot later.
We both managed to get us a buck and a doe, got some real good footage of it. Roy has a real nice 18-inch spread buck he shot, beautiful kill shot, and real nice Catalina goat that they have out here on the Goodwin Ranch, and this is going to place real high in the Texas LSBA, which stands for Lone Star Bowhunters Association, and SCI records. And we're just getting warmed up. We're going to go into town and do a little fishing at Brady Lake, have one of those fine plates of chicken fried steak Mexican food. You've got to like it pretty good, haven't you?
Not bad at all, not bad at all.
So we're going to go do that and take these hard-working cameramen fishing, and then we're going to move over to another ranch and try it again. And I'm telling you, we're going to be back in 1 month when the weather gets a little colder, and go over here about another 10 miles to the famous Ford Ranch and hunt over there with Mr. Forrest Armike. We're going to be trying to rattle us up a deer there. So I think we got everything in the world to look forward to, and we've sure been having a good time. I think we have, haven't we?
Most of the time, been having a real good time.
What do you think about this heart of Texas hunting, Roy?
I really like it. Yeah. This little goat measured about 32 inches across. I didn't think I'd get one that nice. That was a real nice goat.
Have you ever in your life seen as many deer and turkey in a short amount of time as you have today?
Nope.
Or this last 3 or 4 days?
We've hunted 4 days. I've yet to have a day go by that I haven't seen at least one 8-point.
I think we've averaged seeing about 6 bucks per group of hunters and over 100 turkey and probably 30 or 40 other deer. The only thing that's evading us that they have a lot of out here are hogs, and like I said, we ain't through yet.
Part of our deal with the Chamber of Commerce was to film some of the other attractions in the area. So we went fishing one day with Rex Bradford, president of the local bass club, on a big lake that they have there. They supplied the boats and all the gear, and it gave the opportunity for the 2 cameramen to get out from behind the cameras and do a little fishing. Pulling hard. Very good. We're going to get the biggest bass of the day. It was a real keeper in my book, although Rex tells me there's a lot better ones in that pond.
He's good, healthy fish, boy.
Oh yeah, nice fish.
Creeding green.
No, my guide feed
How
just
thick
went
is
up.
he?
Is that what it is? Don't have anything that stings you or anything, do they?
Huh?
They don't sting you or anything, do they?
No. You didn't get him off with the deal.
Never caught a catfish before.
Of course, if you caught a fish right now, the timing would be great, Jim.
Yeah, anytime would be good.
Spectacular sunsets like this were the rule rather than the exception, and I kept trying to get Jimmy to catch a big fish to end off this segment of the video. Unfortunately, whether it was Jim or the fish, there was no cooperation, so we just got to settle for the sunset. With our batteries recharged from all that nice relaxing fishing, we went back out and did some more bow hunting the next day. We saw hogs, turkeys, and all kinds of assorted small game. Typical of bow hunting in Texas. Hunting near the feeders gives you an unusual opportunity to be close to game for a long period of time. We got to watch a lot of interactions between does and fawns from other does. This little 8-pointer was probably only a year and a half old. They have that kind of genetics down here in Texas. I'd love to run into them in about 3 years. This buck was probably 2.5 years old, and if I didn't already have my tag filled, probably would have come home with me. Imagine what that buck would look like at age 5. One morning from a ground blind, we got to watch these two bucks socially interacting. This is the kind of thing we never get to see back home. We only see 1 or 2 bucks all season, and even at that for only a few fleeting seconds.
This becomes a main source of deer food in late October when you have a good acorn crop, and deer will pass up all forms of browse and fed corn or pellets or pecans or whatever their food source, alfalfa fields may have been. They will go to the acorns if there's a rich crop because they're strongest in protein, which they need to get ready for the winter and to go through a successful winter pregnancy. And besides that, if they eat them at the right time of year, it grows good horns. But this is their primary food source. As we've found out today, the deer have moved to where the oak trees are. And if you're not hunting where the acorns are, as all of this deer droppings has proved, you're not hunting where the deer are right now.
The last evening at the Quinn Ranch, we were back on a ground blind, and this real decent 8-pointer came in. He's testing the wind, but because of our careful controls and precautions on scent control, we ended up getting away with being right there on the ground at less than 20 yards. As you can tell, we had a lot of fun on the Quinn Ranch. We were there for 10 days, Tony and I. We saw deer every day. There wasn't a single day that I sat in my stand I didn't see at least one 8-point buck in bow range. Problem was, it was early. It was the first week of October. The acorns had just dropped, and the big bucks were staying down in the acorn trees. They were staying close to the water where it was cool and there was plenty of feed. We hunted traditional Texas style near the corn feeders, and we saw plenty of turkeys, a lot of does, and small bucks. We had a great hunt, we had a great time, but the Trophy Texas Whitetail eluded us. The next time we would go, we'd go to the famous Ford Ranch. And during the Ford Ranch, we'd go the first week of December with Forrest Armike and try rattling for big bucks.
Two deer will come together and they just kind of practice battle. And then they'll back off and stand apart a little bit and kind of bow up and show each other how tough they are, and then they'll try it again. Sometimes that's all you need. You just clink them together a few times and the buck will come running. When that doesn't work, we pause for a while and we try it again. Sometimes these bucks get mad, and when they get mad it gets serious and they go into what's known as a death battle. And in a death battle they actually try to kill each other. Now you can tell there's quite a bit of difference in the sound. This death battle will scare off a lot of your smaller bucks because they're afraid to come in. Even sometimes it will scare a larger buck that's been whipped before, and he'll be afraid he's going to get whipped, and he may not come to a death battle where he would come into a domination battle. So we usually start with a domination and then progress to the death battle.
Forrest has some favorite spots on the ranch to rattle, and we'd head out every morning, the four of us, and set up before he'd start his rattling. This buck come flying in. Bang, he was there. I didn't have time to get my eyes focused off his rack. Guess where the arrow went? That first one was big enough for me. That was the nicest deer I've ever seen. That was a good When Forrest claims that these deer sometimes come running in, he wasn't kidding. This little buck came in at a full run. Left the same way. Here he is coming from a different camera angle. This little buck was kind of rambunctious. Not only did he come to this rattling, but you can tell by the dig marks all through his coat that he'd been sparring with all the bucks in the area.
Roy, this is another sound post rub. We'll put the tape on it and see how big he is. This tree is 20 inches in circumference. You can see the gouges here where he's run his horns in real deep. All the way up to here too. You can see a signpost rub like this in the sun for a half mile. We spotted this one quite a ways off and came to it. He's got it rubbed up here. See how high it is off the ground. He's got it rubbed 44 inches off the ground. He's got some deep gouges in it. Really looks good. That's the sign of an extremely large buck.
Later on in the afternoon, Forrest rattled this little buck right into Tony. It was too small to shoot, but it was a lot of fun to film. After exiting from Tony's shooting position, he came around again to our side where he was still trying to figure out where this rattling was coming from. After a couple of days of unsuccessful hunting by rattling, had a lot of luck bringing little bucks in, but none of the big ones, we decided to go back to Plan 1, which was setting up by water holes or feeders and waiting for the animals to come in. I had arranged to take one doe off of the Ford Ranch, as had Tony, as part of the management program.
Nice healthy doe. Taken at the Ford Ranch down here in Brady, Texas. One shot at 10 yards. Dropped her right in the ground in her tracks. Took out her lungs. She died in about 20 seconds. Not much of a tracking job.
While we were on stand, Forrest rattled in another buck for Tony. Tony had the same trouble as me as far as keeping his eyes off the rack. Forrest rattled this buck in. A little bit bigger buck, he came in a little bit more cautiously. As he was milling around, this armadillo snuck up from behind and came in to see what was going on. This buck hung around for a while, but we never did get a good shot opportunity and decided to go back to the windmills. Tony and I both decided to give up on the rattling and go back to hunting from stands. We replenished the corn feeders and set up our tree stands for the afternoon hunt. This buck came in and gave Tony a pretty good opportunity, but Murphy got him.
Here's my excuse for that 8-point this morning. Just when he was out there, I was all anchored. I had to just scoot out a little bit to put by his shoulder. I gave it one of them little Frank Sinatra slides, and there went, and there went my 8-point.
The end.
After watching this buck for a while, I realized he was an older deer with just a small rack. He was one of the cull bucks. Forrest said we could take off the ranch with no problem. We later aged him at 3.5 years old with this little tiny rack.
My second deer here on the Ford Ranch. We're going home tomorrow. Nobody's near as big a buck as they've got running around here, but for a fellow back home in Massachusetts that only sees probably 2 bucks a year, it's a real nice little deer.
Ford Ranch was another great hunt. Forrest Armike was a wonderful fellow, and we learned a lot about rattling whitetails. Hunting the first week of December, after their rifle season, however, 70 big bucks had already been taken, and the ones that were left were pretty well educated. We shot a lot of deer on film, and we shot a few deer with the bow, but there were no big Trophy Texas whitetails taken on that hunt. Tony and I decided that we were going to set up, or try to set up, a ranch that would be bow hunting only. We set up our first tag-along hunt to Texas at the famous Shaw Ranch. It's only 5,000 acres, working cattle ranch, but they had never been hunted before. We brought 5 hunters down with Tony as the guide. Come on and join us for some fun as we find our Trophy Texas Whitetail. It was a pleasure meeting Kelly and Steve Shaw and seeing Kelly's fine buck that she killed a few years before.
You're looking due east right now. You'd have to consider that sun being on you.
So this might be a better afternoon stand.
Yeah, because you're protected from behind.
Working the ranch full time, Steve has a lot of knowledge about the game and the area, where they travel and where they come to, where they feed and where they bed. That helped us set up a lot of our stands. The trees are kind of small, so we used a lot of ladder stands from API and a few tree stands. The few big trees they have down there's none of them straight, and the API strap-on type stands worked out real well to fit into any kind of odd angle the trees gave us. It goes without saying you shouldn't be using a tree stand or a ladder stand without a safety belt. first morning stand, we had this small buck and a couple of others come in, and then some does. We decided to get right off the ground here with the trophy management program by harvesting one of the does. The wildlife biologist for the Shaw Ranch had told them they had to try to harvest 120 does and 18 bucks to get the buck-to-doe ratio where it really should have been, and they were real concerned that we'd take the does off the property. A lot of blood right here. There she is right there. She went less than 30 yards. Well, she's mighty bald-headed, but as part of the management program here, the wildlife biologist wants 120 does taken off this ranch. And with 2 doe tags on my license, it was just part of the program. See that? See all those tags I got left?
I know it.
Let's get going here.
Time to fling some arrows.
While I was tagging my doe, Janice Hoffman was tagging this fine buck.
Hey! All right, Janice.
Great. All right.
What's the plan?
Yes.
Good deal.
Look at that.
Bradford.
All right.
Dandy.
Is that a dandy?
Is that nice?
Great deal, great deal.
Thanks. This has been a great trip.
Dave Hoffman got this nice hog. It was a real exciting way to start the first day at the Shaw Ranch. These deer were run off by the turkeys. They came down the road from behind us. I was set up in a ground blind. I was set up to try to fool the eyes of a deer, but I couldn't fool these turkeys. They came by, they knew something was wrong, and when they started putting and moving quickly, the deer ran off. Even though the turkeys knew something was wrong, I couldn't resist trying to fill one of those turkey tags. With their sharp vision, it didn't work out too well. A few minutes later, another band of turkeys came by. I figured I'd try it again. Same results. While we were surrounded by turkeys, Brad Livengood from West Virginia got this nice 8-point buck. Janice Hoffman scored on her hog, and Dave McNeil got this nice 9-point buck. Our daily preparations for our evening stands, including taking a midday shower, changing our clothes, and using all kinds of scent-free soaps and cover-up scents. This enabled us to get close and stay close to game every time up. On stand this afternoon, we had a bunch of does come in early. We were in some high grass where we had put out a little bit of corn, but it wasn't a regular feeder. We were hoping that by being in the tall grass and in only a small clearing near some scrub trees, that some bigger bucks would come in. It worked, but the camera didn't. Right after these does left, I made the shot of a lifetime on a beautiful record book buck, but the camera never went on.
Four days of filming down here, waiting for a big boy to come in. We finally had him come in. Gave me a perfect 15-yard quartering away shot. I was lucky enough to put it in the right spot. He took off out of there at a boil. I mean at a boil. First, he went so fast that for the first 10 yards there was absolutely no blood. I was starting to wonder whether or not I actually saw the arrow hit him or if I was just having a dream. Then I picked up the blood, and he was running so fast that it was just a little bit of splotty blood. So I ran the game tracker out on him. And when he started to slow down, there was perfect blood. Put the arrow right through his heart. The hunt's only half over here at the Shah Ranch. And I still got one more buck tag. Even though it's only the end of October, the rut is going on here well enough so that they've been doing a lot of fighting. He's all nicked and scarred all over. He's all beat up. I'll keep him though. And his hocks down here are all scented up. This boy had love on his mind. Caping this buck out, I found numerous big bruises around his neck that led me to believe there was another bigger buck in the area. So we sat the same blind the next morning. We had this buck within 15 to 20 yards of us for over 15 minutes, and I couldn't get a shot because of an overhanging branch. It was really unnerving watching a buck of that caliber that close and not being able to shoot. We were surrounded by other deer at the same time. deer finally took one step forward, which moved him into my shooting lane. As he did, I came to full draw and he heard something and stepped back and looked up. He had me pinned at 15 yards at full draw. There was nothing I could do. Some terrible luck. Last night that buck came in and I made a perfect kill shot and the camera wasn't running. And this morning this bigger buck comes in and he gave me a shot opportunity. I came to full draw and as soon as I did he walked behind a limb and he didn't come out from behind that limb until after I'd been at full draw for over a minute. And between the excitement of having that big buck under me for 15 minutes being at full draw that long, I just absolutely blew the release. And the arrow went right over his back. We got a day and a half left. And I'm gonna have to sit in this stand and pray that that buck comes back. I don't even want to shoot another buck. That's the most unbelievably gorgeous animal I've ever seen in the woods. And I want him on my living room wall. If I have to glue myself to this tree stand. Until the plane leaves. The very next morning found us back in the same stand, well before first light. As the sun came out, we found that were does surrounding us. When I shot, the buck tore out of there, but the other deer was so undisturbed that the 5-point buck just kept walking right in and fed, and the does never left until we came down out of the stand to try to go and find the buck. Man, that's the telltale sign of one heck of a hit. I'm gonna leave it right here to mark the trail. He's right there in sight. I saw him go behind that bush. He just walked over there gradual. I gave a couple of grunts like this. He stopped, turned around and looked back, and then I lost sight of him. I thought he walked off, he just dropped right there. We got him. The entry hole. Hang on for a second, I'll show you what that rack looks like. Yeah. This is the last morning of a 6-day hunt at the Shaw Ranch in South Texas, down here in Goliad. And it may take 5 more days to wipe this smile off my face. We saw this buck yesterday, and I blew the shot because I was at full draw for too long. As soon as I came to full draw, he got hidden behind a branch and I couldn't get the shot. After about a minute and a half, he stepped out walking, and I just absolutely blew the shot, went right over his back. Didn't know for sure if he'd ever give me another chance, but after watching him on video, I just couldn't sit anywhere else. I just had to come back here and try for this big boy. Came in here this morning, was fortunate enough. Had about 7 or 8 does, a couple of button bucks in there feeding on the corn, and all of a sudden we heard the tickling of antlers, and in came this big boy again with a small 6-point. Somehow I managed to put it all together, and I didn't blow this shot. Yesterday's miss wasn't as far a miss as what I thought. The corner of one blade of that broadhead just skimmed right across, right here and right there. Well, not many people get to pose with a trophy picture like this after a 1-week deer hunt. There were 5 hunters. Get over here, Dave. There's one other hunter here. Come on, Dave. Dave's going out tonight and get his buck. The rest of us all got lucky a little earlier, that's all. But this is the results of 5.5 days of hunting at the Shaw Ranch on their first bow hunter only hunt. And the consensus of opinion is that the hunt was a success. In addition to these 5 bucks, there's been probably another 15 or 20 bucks sighted. There's been a pile of does taken, 3 or 4 pigs. I personally missed at least 3 shots on turkeys, and there's a few other guilty parties here too. It's been one heck of a hunt here at the Shaw Ranch in Goliad, Texas. Everybody agree?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Thanks for joining us on Project Trophy Texas Whitetails. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as we enjoyed making it. We learned a lot on these 3 trips to Texas. If we ever had to do it again, it would be a little simpler, and I hope to pass some of that on to you people watching this video. The first trip down, we went early in October, and we found that the big bucks were hiding in heavy cover because of the heat. The rut was nowhere near starting, and the mass crop had just dropped on the ground. It was real hard to find the bucks. The second time we went in December. The rut was starting, and it was cooking pretty good, but the big bucks had been scared or taken during the rifle season. The third trip down, we went the very last week of October, just before the gun season started. The bucks were as close as they could be to the rut without being disturbed by the rifles, and we were hunting a ranch that had been set aside for bow hunting only. They are on a trophy management program, and there were a lot of good bucks and a lot of good age structure. That was the key. It all came together on that third trip, and all of us had real good shots and good opportunities, nice bucks. If you go to Texas, I hope that's the way your hunt works out. Thanks again, and good luck. Good hunting. This video production was sponsored in part by Eastern Bowhunting Magazine, the only monthly bowhunting publication in North America.
This has been a Swift River video production.